And first of all, I apologize for running late to the meeting. It's nice to see you all here on our special meeting tonight to talk about the Raleigh K-8 school. Do we have any members of the public here?
We do not.
We do not. So why don't we jump right into it? Paul, I think you wanted to walk us through some of the additional information that's been included in the packet.
Great, thank you. Good evening. So the package we sent out to you with more information on the Raleigh Hills K-8 recommendation that we're asking for you to consider here as well. And again, there's a lot of information that we gave to you at the last meeting, so I'm not going to retread all that information. I just want to go to some of the new information in the package we gave you as well. So let's go right ahead. If you'll flip to page 10 in your package, and if you're flipping the double-sided, it's 5 pages in, and it's labeled Superintendent's Recommendations. Assumptions, right? Okay. Superintendent's assumptions. So we had a discussion the last meeting about, and it's also displayed up here. We had a discussion the last meeting about some of the issues that are standing out there, and speaking with Dawn, we made some planning assumptions here that we wanted you to take in consideration for your recommendation. The first one is we talked about demographics and the need for a school in this area. And our planning for the future is that for the foreseeable future, we will need a school at the Raleigh Hills site. That is an enduring site for schools, and there will be a need in that area for a school in the future. All right. The next one I'll kind of skip over too. We talked about that one. The third, as far as the swing plan and the cost of where we put those kids while we rebuild the school, that's a cost that will be incorporated in the overall bond program. Like this bond, we have several projects that we're doing, and we're using Timberland as a swing for several projects. So one of our planning assumptions is that we will be doing more than one new construction in the next bond, and therefore we will have a swing plan that will be incorporated. And so we didn't include that planning or that cost into this specific project as well. Let's see. Also, just a couple comments there. Of course, there is risk pushing work to the next bond. We don't know that the next bond will be approved, and we also don't know that this project would make the cut in the funding for that next bond. However, our assumption is that, based on our past knowledge, that we have a very high favorability for another bond to get passed, and also for this project to be included in that bond, especially as we discussed, holding the $12 million for this renovation to offset costs for a new construction. Okay, so there is risk there, but we do feel in discussions with Dawn that it is favorable for us to get that next bond passed as well. All right. And then also, we talked about, could we put a new school on that? We have a potential site layout that we added here as well, and we can fit a new school on this site. And it would not be our prototype that we did at Sato Vos Hazeldale. Doesn't quite fit, but we can get the same square footage out of a unique building on that site as well. All right. So, any questions on those assumptions before we move forward? Jerome.
What is the status of the Shoals Ferry extension? Where is that in the process?
That is down the road. So the county has that desire for the future. We know that's out there. But it's not a project they're contemplating at this time. As far as our current project with the $12 million, we still don't have a final decision for the current project. However, our discussions, what we expect from the county is to say that we can live within, that they can live and accommodate what we're doing within the existing pavement. So there may be some restriping and some we might be forced into a right turn only out of the parking lot versus what we do now going both directions. But that would be the current status. In the future, Shoals Ferry, they are expanding on other pieces of that road, and that will be coming down the road to expand.
Expansion meaning widening?
Widening of the road. It's 2-lane right now, probably to 3-lane is their current plan.
The TSP shows it as a 5-lane cross-section, but so did Olson Road when that project went through. And given the proximity to that area and the enormity of the improvements that are needed at the intersection, with Shoals, Olson, and BH Highway, that what will likely happen is following the same model as what they did with Olson Road, in having 3 lanes with full bike lanes and sidewalks on both sides.
On bullet E, you say will compete well with next bond funding. How's that lay out in the order of priorities as far as what does that mean? In the top third, top first one, or what does that rate?
Well, we believe, so again, we've had those discussions about the priority for the next bond is not set of what the school district will go after. We believe that new construction, the renovation of those spaces to the new standards will compete very well. We've, one thing on the slides here, we talked about what's changed. And I think our district, with our educational specifications, what we've done in our new schools is we have a much higher expectation in the school district for the learning environment as well, which leads to the construction of new schools. So we believe it will compete very well in that cycle, but again, that's a public process to gain that piece from our community of what they believe the priorities are.
Paul, you said that the property, the site would not be able to accommodate the prototype that has been used in other places. Have you looked at it to say it's so far off you got to throw the whole thing out, or could you modify the prototype and get some benefit out of designs already?
We certainly will be, at this point, we've only done some preliminary work to make sure we can fit something on that site. So we developed one concept, but there's other ways to go on this site. And certainly a lot of the design features that went into our prototype would be incorporated in a new building. That basically has become part of our process and our standard for what we've done at the schools we've built. Okay. All right. So let's go. If you flip 4 pages to slide 19, just to show you, this is the potential site layout replacement school. So this is our in-house team here, led by Aaron, went and did a potential layout of what we believe the site would look like. So that's just to show you, again, we don't need to spend a lot of time, very preliminary before we get into an actual design, but just one of our ideas for how we would configure the site, and that we do have the ability to put a larger school on that site. 2-story at this point, not larger than... We could go 3-story, but this is, we feel we can accommodate a 2-story site plan, which ties very closely, puts us a little closer to our prototype, Dick, for your question as far as the design effort. All right. To the next page, asked about the $45 million. Very simply, how we got to that number and our confidence in that. We looked at, this is based on what we're paying currently for William Walker. We looked at at Hazeldale, William Walker, what we're seeing. We're paying a little bit less than $400 per square foot right now at William Walker. We've escalated that out to 2022 at a pretty high rate there as well, based on the current market, and that's how we arrived at the $45 million. So our confidence, again, it's a planning estimate for several years out, so we feel it's within the proper price range, but there's always a risk of what the market will do. Okay.
So the design looks like a 100,000 square foot school, and then on here, 45 to 55, about 50 million. I know it's a really, really costly design, right?
Yeah.
7,000.
And certainly those numbers there, we're planning on 90,000.
That's
That's
okay.
Okay.
A bit of clarification there. When I looked at this thing and I went through the page that had the cost for each option, I thought they were additive. In other words, option 1 said 12 million and 15 million for repairs, so I thought, okay, that's 27 million. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, but option 3 has got 45 million for a new school and 12 million offset.
The
Does
12
that mean it's 57 million?
No.
No, that means the 12 million would be the savings from canceling the current project or holding it.
So it'd be an
So
additional
the
33.
additional cost is 33 million.
Okay, thank you.
So this chart should be, the cost to the current bond is 12 million for option 3, and the cost to the next bond would be 33 million.
Correct.
That'd be number one.
There's some financing pieces there. It would be a swap out of those dollars in the new bond as well.
Oh, I see.
And that, but it's an offset to this savings to the project as well. We just, on this chart, it's, we're showing 45 is that future cost we'd have to pay, and basically we're paying nothing now, but there is that offset of the 20 million. Yes.
Is that life extension of 75 years sort of realistic? Is that a standard assumption?
So certainly there will have to be work that happens within that 75 years, but that is, good or bad. Sadly, that's the life of our schools is greater than 75 years. We're in the Beaverton High School is 1908.
Well, Raleigh Hills is 1926, the original portion.
1926.
This school was built in the early 60s.
Right. So that is kind of our.
Well, actually, the original
factor.
portion of the building was built in 27.
Yeah, the
Oh, Raleigh.
Yeah, Raleigh.
He was talking about this building.
Yeah.
So the page before this, we talked about net present value. We've looked at the maintenance costs, the overhaul pieces or the utilities. Frankly, they're kind of eclipsed by the cost of construction. So we included this slide. One of the things in these options, really when you think of option 1 and 2 with that 20-year life extension, those options lead to, I did not include at the end of those 20 years the cost of a new school at Raleigh Hills. That would definitely skew these numbers. So this is a bit, we did the NPV calculation, but up front it's a bit of an apples and oranges because we did not include that reinvestment of a future buy on those ones. And these are options that have different investment periods, and so it's hard to line them up. So we did this investment, and I think the point is it's really about, are we buying, option 3 is buying a new school in the very near future, whereas option 1 and 2 is buying a new school 30 years from now. So really when you think about the financing, it's just the timing of when we do that, extending the current building or doing it now.
The repairs, maintenance, and utilities are for each year over the next 20 years, or that's the total for the 20 years on each of those options?
So it is. So for this analysis, we took the year of the major renovation or new construction at 2024,
Okay.
and so we went from today to 2024, and then 20 years beyond that. That's why it says 28 years. So that's to the time of that renovation. Basically saying that we could get from today, we'd expect to get 28 more years out of Raleigh Hills.
And those would be the total maintenance costs for each option, right? Like $650,000 over 28 years.
Right. That's, we calculated each year escalated costs of what we currently have. The option 3, we looked at our costs at Sato and Vos of what we're paying at those schools to come up with the utilities and the maintenance projections as well.
And why are the utilities higher in option 3? Wouldn't it be more efficient on the newer school?
It is more efficient, but it's a much larger building.
Larger building.
Yeah. That's part of that. It's a school. Again, it's 90,000 square feet compared to 62.
36.
The current school's 36.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I think it's 45 because the old portion is 2 stories.
Still.
Definitely.
So, and then of course, the last is the matrix, comparison matrix. So, with that, I have one more thing I'll pass around here before we get to discussions. So I put together I would say this is my recommendation, but I put together proposed language. I think if you recommend that we go with option 3, there's some caveats or conditions that you'll want to put on that. So I kind of took the liberty of drafting up a piece for you to look at, mark up, and decide if that's what you want to pursue. So.
Yeah.
So Paul, before we start talking about this, why don't we have more Q&A or conversation amongst the committee members about these 3 options and see what people are thinking and if there's a consensus amongst the group.
Not sure how to phrase this question in terms of this, but what kind of input do we have from the Raleigh Hills staff and the parents in that community, or the parents in any other community that feel impacted?
So
In the past, I've found when a government agency that I work with decided to make a decision and impose that on the community, it did not go well. And they learned that by going through focus groups and getting involvement, we had a far better chance of success. Do we do that here? I'm not sure.
Yes, so we have not done that yet. So we brought this to you as kind of the first blush to come to the VAC and get your look at it as far as the financial value of this. Is it of greater value to pursue option 3? So, and what we just passed out to you, one of the conditions is that before we go into the board for approval with this, is that we go to the Raleigh Hills community and we get that input from them as well. So our intention, based on tonight, is from here, we will go to the school, to the staff, to the parents in the community, to tell them what we're looking at doing and having some, getting some input, information nights with them about this proposal before we go to the board. One, we'll get their input to us as the staff, but then also we'll make sure that they know when this issue is coming to the board, so if they care to come and testify to the board themselves, they will have that opportunity for them.
Well, a question I have is the degree of comfort we have with the information about option 3. As you've stated in here, there hasn't been any design work or working off of some high-level metrics from other recent projects. And I recognize we're under a pretty tight time frame if we're going to stay the course with option 1. We need to get going. But I'm wondering, would you and your team recommend that we take a little more time, maybe do a little more study of, from an architectural standpoint, engineering standpoint, so we can have a higher degree of comfort with what these cost estimates are for option 3?
I second that concern. Just reading the newspaper about the problems that the Portland schools have had. They went off with very limited information. And apparently somebody picked up that we're just trying to pass something that or put out a number that you thought the community would agree to. And then when they got to the real number, it was extraordinary, big overwhelm. We would not want to get in this situation.
I think that the issue that you face, though, is no one can predict the future. You have professionally tested numbers now, and it's a range because no one should come out here thinking it's going to be 45 million. You're trying to do a proportional relationship of cost invested versus what it might be. I can't do the math in my head about the differentials, but bottom line, it is only a relationship number, not technically the right number.
So I would say on the cost factors, being able to base it on what we're doing now and then what we've seen in our current schools, and we're very conservative. I think one of the things that got Portland in trouble is that they had their range of costs and they went to the low end, Dick, as well, when they went forward. I mean, there's more to it as well. We've tried to be conservative and kind of round up on these numbers as well. And I think, as Carl said, we're trying to put us in the range there, but there's certainly volatility. And as we get to the next bond, again, you know, there'll be refinement of these numbers as we go on. So it may not be exactly 45 million, but we feel that's close to where we'll be. The other piece is how much of this we develop and how we pay for that development as well. That wouldn't be something we can carry in the current bond as well to go further with this, with the design.
I think the issue that you look for when you're doing this with, you know, drawings, the sketches, is that you have a risk there might be a fatal flaw in your assumptions related to that site. And obviously you look at you guys to say, okay, we've looked at all the issues. The road won't get to be a superhighway. The neighbors don't have easements across the middle of the property. Those type of things. Those are the things that could be fatal flaw for the site. I guess you could describe your due diligence of the site, making sure that you reduce the risk of those flaws, fatal flaws. I mean, what have you guys have looked at the site a number of different ways? I mean, what have you found, through research?
So we've done quite a bit of research on this site for this addition project as well. So we know with the county, their plans are not a superhighway on Shoals Ferry. It is that third lane for the foreseeable future out there as well. And that's something in the new construction that we can accommodate, that will give them, they will snap up that right of way, and we can accommodate that in our new plan for the site better than we can in the current process as well. We know we have the easement issue that exists, the unwritten easement of our neighbors through our parking lot at this point. And part of the new plan is we can clean that up and give them that room on the side of the property so that they have a clear access to their property, and we can remove that condition that's currently upon us as well.
It is one of the most unique risks I've seen in a long time, an easement without.
The non-existent easement.
Yeah, I looked up on Zillow, and those houses were built in 1927. So they were built at the same time that school was built.
Well, the thing is, they have an easement, but it goes to the north. And so it goes by the retirement facility and the paint shop and all the rest of it. But the grades have changed so much over time, it's physically impossible to move a vehicle in that direction. So they go to the south through our property.
I think from my perspective, it's the community around Rolling Hills that are not losing anything other than a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years, but they're still going to get a new cafeteria, they're still going to get a band room, they're going to get all this stuff, and they'll be without portables in the end. But the pluses are that they're going to have a brand new school, meet the needs. And to me, that just seems like a very responsible and prudent use of funds. To say, well, you know what, we said we're going to give you this add-on stuff, so that's what you're going to do. I suspect if you went to the community, they'd be like, yeah, I could defer a couple years or whatever to get a new school. I would think people would rather have that. So I don't think the argument is, I can't imagine too many people saying, I want this now, even though it's, Class C stuff. I'd go for the better stuff, and it's more responsibility, and you address a lot more safety issues with option 3 that I think would be attractive. I think safety and security was a big theme in this current. And so I think it's consistent with that.
When Paul and Carl came to me, I thought, when they first presented the idea, said, we want you to look at these numbers. And I said, wow, the Bond Oversight Committee, you got us going, and we got to have cost containment. We're getting everything done. Is this the road we want to go down? But then after thinking about it, Number one, I'm glad that they did their homework and bringing it to you to get your opinions, because somewhere down the road, then you may have those folks that says, what were they thinking? 10 years down the road, we're coming back for another 10, 15, 20 million. And then in the last district I was in, we went through something very similar to that. David Douglas passed a bond, and one of it was to renovate the swimming pool. Now you need to know, in this swimming pool, there had been 3 Olympic champions there, 2 gold and a silver. And the swimming pool had quite a heritage. And our project managers came to us and said, hey, for another $15, $16 million, we can give you a brand new swimming pool, and versus you're still going to have this swimming pool and around there that's going to be, going on 80, 70, 80 years old, and the equipment. So we did exactly what you said, Dick. We went out and talked to the community, and most of them said, yeah, that's great, thanked us for coming to them and thinking about the dollars. What I will tell you, there were a couple who know we have to, that's been there, this is a mainstay. So what we did was try to incorporate, is there something in the design or something that we can incorporate to, for the history to go forward of the community. So, but I just appreciate all you guys. You guys do have us on the right track right now. But we just felt we needed to bring it to you, get your professional opinions about this. It would have been easy, I think, for us to just keep going down the road, and we're really on a good trajectory. But I think we owe it to the taxpayers to take a hard look at this.
I guess I think about as managing into the future. The existing building through option 1 and option 2 is only going to get more expensive. It's even with $15 to $25 million in improvements. We're still dealing with the bones of the ancient building, and I think being fiscally prudent around the resources that are hardest and easiest for the district to acquire. Hardest are going to be maintenance dollars. Some of the easiest are going to be capital construction. Making that investment in the new building will pay dividends down the road. And I think over the last, since 2014, the district has built a lot of credibility with the community around delivering on promises. So I think it's a good time to make a withdrawal from that bank of goodwill. And do a project that, and for me, spending, is that $27 to $37 million for an extra 20 years, that seems like a bad investment to me.
One of the thoughts that I have is how could we give the community, how could the school board give the community more certainty that if they're patient, if option 3 goes forward, that they won't be delayed 20 years until 5 bond measures down the road. I'm looking at your wording here, Paul. The board will make construction of a new school at Raleigh Hills a high priority for consideration. Is there a way we could strengthen that language to give the community more of a sense of commitment that this is a priority and you would expect it to be part of that next bond measure?
Eric, you're the vice chair there, buddy.
I think it's a little disingenuous to suggest that the current board can bind future boards.
But if I were a member of that community, I think that would be my biggest concern. I would think, yeah, I would love a new school, let's do it right, completely agree with the math, but how long am I going to have to wait? And I don't actually have a suggestion, I just think that we're asking them to take a big leap of faith. And I think they could be more supportive if they felt more confidence that the project would go forward within the 2022-2024 timeframe, assuming the new project is passed, which in other sense.
That's the hard guarantee part. I mean, even this board, and as we go out and we're already starting to gather information of what a next bond will look like, and it's you don't run a bond campaign just overnight. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into getting it established. I mean, we could definitely say, because there was some kind of timeline that was put together this last time, that it was the high school was built first, and then there was something that decided that ACMA came last, and that what the priority was on there. I mean, this could certainly be, because the money was already given, we have to spend it on this. The promise is we have to spend it on Raleigh Hills. Now, so it would make good sense that because we already have that money, that it would be the first thing on that list as far as the bond. But, I mean, there's still a part, that's a big, I'm asking for the voters in the Beaverton School District. I can make my decision up, but the other board members can make their decision up, but I cannot say that the Beaverton voters, I can say that, Maureen's going to do her best to put together a campaign, and we're all going to do our part but that's I just hate giving absolute guarantees.
Yeah, I understand, and I wasn't suggesting that, because I know it's not possible. But how you just described it, I think, makes a lot of sense. If we could go a little further, if this committee wanted to, in framing the priority that at least the board and the current superintendent would place on this project, given what we know today.
You could go maybe a little bit further in talking about, because that money is still going to be designated for Raleigh Hills, and to say, in the event we have a horrible downturn in the economy or something tragic happens, that money will not go away. That money is dedicated for Raleigh Hills, and will not leave that site.
And that was the language I included, was that the 12 million stays with Raleigh Hills and is executed if we don't get this, then we go back to whether it's an addition or a renovation of the existing, depending on capacity at that point. But that money stays with Raleigh Hills until we get this project approved.
So what is the back door on that 12 mil? When's it sunset? How long can you hold on to it?
So they don't expire with the bond. They have a fairly long lifespan on the dollars there. So we would want to execute it after that, but we don't have to execute that money within the 8 years. In fact, I believe we still have some 06 bond dollars that have not been executed.
Do you have arbitrage or anything on these numbers?
You have to have when you sell the bonds, you have to have a reasonable expectation that you will spend it within 3 years. And reasonable is pretty mushy, so.
So then to appease the audience, so to speak, you put in an escrow account and just let it sit and ride? Or here, like 5 years, because 220 by the time you get it built.
Mr. Red Sox?
Our business office actively invests the bond dollars that are unspent. So in theory, it would kind of stay in that pool and get invested and build interest for the current program.
Could we give the community some confidence that this is going to go through by initiating the design earlier and using some of that 12 million so that not only you got your foot in the door, you've got a plan ahead of time, which might help schedule a little bit, but it would also give us a much firmer number for what it's going to cost if we have the actual design developed.
I'll interject. A master plan is a good idea. A detailed design has a shelf life based on codes, seismic stuff, and trends in construction in only 6 months. And you pretty much, I mean, you can use it, but you're pretty much starting from scratch after a year of a set of drawings. And it's not, they don't get good shelf life on drawings.
So you could do the conceptual design up to
At a certain point. But I would not invest money in detailed drawings because of the shelf life if you're looking at the 222.
If I were a staff member or a parent or whatever stakeholder, I would feel a little better giving my toe in the door, so to speak, to that this is going to be a real project.
Do you spend bond dollars on conceptual designs that don't have committed funding for construction?
So we have, one of the nuances of this is that this project being a new school, the current, it's not currently in the bond language to build this new school. And so we have either process of doing judicial notification to expend it on this project, or as we get this approved in the next bond, we would swap out the $12 million for new bond dollars to get this project done. So it's a little, within the current bond, we could work on a conceptual drawing to see how we can do that. It may not be bond dollars, we may have to look at other sources to get that done.
I'd like to go back to that question I had earlier, just to make sure that I understand this. I think it's on page 6 or something like that. It says options, and it's got option 1, 2, and 3, and it's got the dollars. The way I understand it is option 1, we would spend the $12 million on the project that we have in front of us. And then I anticipate that in the next bond, we get another $15 million to do repair work, which is called minimal. So that means in 2024, we've spent $27 million.
Correct.
And we've got a school that's band-aided even more than it is now.
Correct.
Option 2 would go ahead and do that $12 million now. And instead of just doing repairs, we would do a major renovation. So in 2024, we would have spent $37 million. I'm not sure where the major renovation takes us, but it wouldn't be to the level of a new school.
No,
but it would
no,
be,
it's still an old building.
And then option 3, we would spend $45 million total, which, since we already have $12 million from the 2014 bond, we're talking about an additional $33 million.
Correct.
Okay. I think when we go to the public, or maybe even the board or anything else, if this page could be reworked, I think it's a powerful case. Maybe everybody else understands it, but I stumbled through it. But to me, it really makes the financial or the value aspect for going with option 3 pretty strong. But I confess, I put down $57 million for option 3. I thought and I thought, oh, this isn't as good a deal as I thought last month.
We can do the math on that page.
Yeah, you can just make it 33 million for new school in the next one, 45. So you have the 12 million and all the options in there. Just keep it.
The only thing I'll push back on is option 3 says no investment, but you're going to be doing something for the Band-Aids to keep it together. I mean, whether it's roofing or patching roofs or fixing doors. I mean, is there a number there that's missing, or is that identified someplace else? Low maintenance.
There's continued in our net present value. We included maintenance. There's still maintenance cost that goes into that,
right,
at the standard rate, and some repairs to patch systems together. But we wouldn't anticipate, if we're looking at that 2022 for new construction, we wouldn't make any investments in that building other than trying to keep it together.
Well, I think you need to be clear that there's, instead of Band-Aids keeping it together, because it's a non, it is a cost that this district is paying. So at least identify something, because some accountant's going to go in there and tear it apart.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that a little bit. Now, on this, I don't think it's in this packet today, but this component summary, we list the components of the Raleigh Hills under the current bond. We have about $2 million set aside for fire sprinkler upgrades, fire alarm upgrades, hazardous materials. Those kind of things, they have to be done anyway, right? Whether we go with option 3 or not.
Well, option 3 would, no, in the current building?
I mean,
No, that's only if we go into major renovation. So like for the addition, we have to sprinkle that addition piece. For the existing building, we don't have to go back and retrofit with the addition. If we go back with the major renovation on the rest of the building, that's when we trigger the update to the compliance issues.
Yeah, so right now, I mean, if we went with option 3, we don't have to do any of that stuff. It's going in and adding on to the building that triggers the additional requirements.
No added value, but maintenance, instead of a maintenance cost for 4 years.
Right. Yes.
Did they already win?
They haven't started playing. I did the front end where parents go out with kids and
That's emotional, isn't it?
it's kind of crazy. Well, and there's 9 seniors on the team.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Yeah, these girls have played together since 4th grade. Crazy.
Are we taking on any risk by not doing these compliance requirements until 2022 or whatever?
No, I don't believe we are. The requirements only become triggered once we start adding on.
Well, yeah, I think I understand that you're required to
Oh,
do
I
that,
see,
but I'm
taking on
thinking,
risk.
Yeah,
Right.
There's
the
risk.
fire alarms is not working unless we do an upgrade.
Yeah,
Fire.
so there's a risk of system failure, which is current, basically, I think that runs in all our options, because those, again, until that 2022, 2024, when we do that major renovation, we're not repairing those systems until that point as well. So it's this, the risk of a system failure before we get to new construction or the renovation, it's the same risk of a major failure, of a boiler going out, a structural issue somewhere, roof failure. That's the same in all the options.
Well, it's the same risk that applies to every other school that has some level of non-compliance in, some critical system for life safety.
The difference I see is if something catastrophic happened because the upgrades were not there, and they say, well, you guys should have been doing this back when you promised the first time, and you delayed it, and so you're partially responsible.
Well, but a lot of those fixes wouldn't get done, right, under option 1. If you just did
Right.
the 12 million,
So-
you're still not fixing most of that.
So this shows the $12 million project, and these were the bond commitment items, and then these are the additional compliance requirements that we're saying, or that the city is telling us would be required to be done. So with the $12 million project, we are doing a fire sprinkler upgrade in the whole school. By attaching on, it triggers that. But a lot of things aren't being done, like Paul said. This is just these specific compliance items are being done in the 12 million. But none of them were scheduled. None of them were voter commitments. They're just because we're touching the building, we have to do these other things.
Looking at this option comparison matrix, again, I hadn't quite thought about this before, but if you look at the third row, construction year, there really isn't much of a time frame difference between option 3 completion and when a second round of renovation work would happen with either option 1 or option 2. I think mentally I've been kind of assuming this was many years down the road, and this in and of itself to me is a pretty important selling point to the option 3, that they're really not waiting longer, many years down the road, if this project were to be prioritized in the bond measure to be one of the early projects.
And thinking about option 1 and option 2 and impact on staff and community, I think much greater impact than the first 2 options, because there'd be some feeling of living in a perpetual construction zone. And I mean, we've gone through that at the zoo with a 10-year program now. I mean, it's wearing on staff.
Yeah.
Constantly wondering what's going to be closed, maintenance fenced.
Any other thoughts, comments? This has been a good
Maybe one just
conversation.
last question.
Yes, go right ahead, David.
Just, on option 2 and 3, risk is listed as medium. The only risk you're talking about there is the risk of the project going forward, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the approval and then inclusion in the next
It's a little more
bond.
because we don't have the money. Is that
Right.
That's the difference? Okay. I
Based
thought
on
that was
the value, right.
All right. I'm sorry.
So what would our answer be to somebody in the community that they'd ask, so what is your contingency plan if it doesn't pass for Raleigh Hills? Would we do the 12 million, and we'd have to probably at that
Yeah.
point do more because the cost increases and that type of thing. So,
Potentially.
Yeah.
so I think that we need to probably consider that. I think you got to lay out all the potential.
Here's a quick question. I mean, I've been to a lot of schools, obviously, if I'm on board. You have a learning environment, and I definitely understand what the old one, status quo, what it looks like. And optimal, like if you go to Timberland. I'm not sure if everybody's seen that, but like, there is a huge difference in the learning environment of a newer one, the plan, ed specs change it, the lightness. There's a lot of intangibles there that we want to make sure we message. I don't think everybody knows about that until they really walk about it in a school like Sato, like we just did the other day, and you can really see that I think it'd be a better learning environment.
Oh, I see.
Worth the investment.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest things we came back to, and as we've discussed it, I mean, this is really the benefit of doing option 3. Is the learning environment, the security, daylighting, all
Right.
that stuff.
Yeah.
There
But
are
we
some
need
of
to
our
make sure we
taxpayers that don't view that as valuable as others.
Correct. Correct.
Anything else? Last call?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Is this the only school that will fall under this category?
Absolutely not.
Policy started.
That's the easiest.
We have, as we put together, we're in the early stages of preparing for that next bond. So we're in the assessment phase now of our current schools to look at that, at those schools. And there is others in the district that we will proffer up and have the discussion of replacement versus repair in them as well.
Well, I meant under this current bond.
No.
Are there any of the schools that you've done work on or plan to do work on that you might come back and go, maybe we should just do
No, this is the last. We really have
renovations.
2 major projects left. It's this one, and it's the ACMA, the Arts and Communication Magnet Academy replacement, which is one that is it's a full school replacement per se with Performing Arts Center staying. So this is kind of the last of this nature in the project.
I think that's an
So what
important point.
please consider.
Decide to argue this bond.
That's
This is kind of a
That's
one-off
right.
for this particular
Yeah.
bond.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
Can I?
Carl, go ahead.
I just want to make another comment on the first bullet of the sheet that Paul passed off. I think we have to assume where it says at the end of that first statement, it says if the new school project is not included in the next bond. I think this team has to assume that it will be included in the next bond, and the only way in which it wouldn't move forward is if the bond did not pass. I think we need to potentially change that. If that's, I think it needs to be that forceful a recommendation that this committee would not walk by that and would not say it's a must that it's on the next ball.
And if it doesn't pass, let's say, it is in the package and all that, and it doesn't pass, what is our further commitment to the school? Because it could be more than $12 million to do the work at that point. So.
Potentially, yes. But I would also say we don't know what the programming is going to be. That's not this committee's decision. It's currently a K-8 program. We may be in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, only having a K-5 program there. So there are factors that may change that are outside of the purview of this committee and our department. That is entirely an instruction decision. So there are other factors that may come into play at that point in time. But certainly that $12 million would remain committed to Raleigh Hills.
With escalation factor.
Yes. Yes.
So my question maybe to you, Superintendent, is would you like us to give you, would you like us to take a vote on this matter as a committee, or are you comfortable with us just giving you more informal recommendation?
First, you need to know that this committee garners a lot of respect from our school. Number one, we feel that you have the expertise, but also, just like you're doing right now, you're asking us some pretty tough questions. And so you are an advisory committee, but they do respect your voice. And I think as we talked about before, having that as either as a collective entity come and say, you know what, we've looked at the data that you've presented as much as we know, and right now, based on today's data, we either feel not to go forward, we need to keep doing what we're doing, and or we do believe in option 3 and move forward, and that would be our recommendation. And then I think that's when we go out and we engage the community and engage the staff at the school, and then come back, and then ultimately it would be the board's decision.
And how I would like to see this, and Eric and I haven't totally mapped this out, but I think what would be good is exactly what Don said. The board, you folks have the expertise in construction. We do not have construction, or our financial expertise is Eric. As far as the board goes, we rely a lot on staff, but this board saying that you think this is a good fiduciary decision based on the taxpayers' money and what we ask taxpayers would go a long way with the board. I would appreciate an actual vote, and I would also appreciate that when we bring this up to the board after these other steps, that it would be you or somebody else from the committee be at our board meeting to say this is what we felt about, because I think that has a lot more weight than it coming through Dawn, or even coming through Eric, who is the board liaison, or coming from myself. You folks saying this is something I think would really have a lot of weight with the school board. So I would like to see you do an actual vote so that we could go, and then I think that would also help as we go to the next phase with our community and our messaging with the community, that this professional volunteer committee thinks that it would be whatever it is that you folks think is the best. So that's how I'd like to see it, is a vote, and then come and present to the board.
Further, Becky, I would welcome, and I think we would all encourage the BAC to be at some of those community meetings as well. Just the visibility with the expertise and being able to weigh in with staff on questions, and just your professional opinions and experience, I think would also be valuable.
We have a phenomenal staff, but I think sometimes our taxpayers think that they're just saying what needs to be said. You folks are members of our community. You volunteer for this. You have years and years of expertise in so many things. I think that weighs a lot more. Of course, we have the expertise of our staff that we use over and over again, but that's almost seems like an inside job. So whereas when we have folks from the community that feel, I think it just has a lot more weight. And transparency, yes. And that's really important to our board, that we show that transparency.
Thank you, that's very helpful. So, it feels like we're ending the end of our conversation here. Are there any final thoughts or comments? Drew? We're so glad you're on the back.
If I was thinking critically, the one question I would ask is, what fact or what information would, if I had that information, would make me not want to go with option 3? And I've been thinking about this for about the last half hour, and probably the only thing that would strike me as a reason not to go with option 3 would be if I had information suggesting that there's a 25% chance that this school would not be needed after 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Future state.
that's just me thinking. So.
Yeah, that's in the future state.
Well, and that's, we kind of made that assumption about the need of the school for the foreseeable future, and there's certainly demographic changes that happen across the district as
I appreciate it.
population ebbs and flows at different places as well. So somewhat of doing this project is, I think, perpetuating this school at that location. That there may be other considerations as we look at other schools as well. But, there is a need. There is a need for the foreseeable future for a K-5 or K-8 school in this corner of the district as well.
Well, the school itself, to some extent, will be a draw to the community and encourage people to stay in the neighborhood with children.
That's what new schools always are.
Well, and that's an interesting part of the world down there at Raleigh Park and Raleigh Hills. Generations come back and families are raised there. It's really, really interesting. So there's a lot of history there, with families. And I was just talking to Carl. It might be helpful for our new members to see the future study. I don't know if they've had if that's been made available to you. The district did a 50-year lookout for the district called a future study.
Yeah. Is that on the website?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I may have downloaded it and not read it yet.
You're clogged up your printer.
Or fell asleep reading
There's
it.
only about 5,000 pages in it.
Well, it's only about 4,000.
Okay, all right.
Exaggerated.
Do I hear a motion from any of the back members?
I would move approval of the staff recommendation with the change on the first bullet that it says, rather than if the new school project is not included, delete that last part of the sentence to say, unless the new bond does not pass.
Are we going to use this as the motion?
That's our prerogative. I mean, we can choose to use it or not.
I was wondering if you could make the second bullet a bit more emphatic and say something like construction of a new school at Raleigh Hills is the highest capital construction priority for the next one.
Oh.
Does that make sense, or is it going out on a limb?
It's typically, that would be a recommendation that would come from this expanded group when you're developing that list of priority projects. And I certainly hope and wish that this group has a crossover to that committee. And that's a recommendation we go forward to the board. That it is the BAC's, whatever we call it at that point in time, highest recommendation of priority.
So if we're going off this document, I'd change the second sentence, the increased value, that's a consideration of long-term fiscal responsibility. I mean, that's what we're trying to do here, is instead of using the word the increased value. I think our job has been to look at fiscal responsibility. And instead of using recommends in the next sentence, I would say supports. Does that make sense? Because I think it is a recommendation from the school district. we're supporting it.
Increase long-term value of a new school.
On the roll.
Long-term.
I thought maybe another bullet at the end, something about the fact that once the community gets feedback, that there's a discussion with this group again on what the findings were. So I kind of wrote it, said it's like based on reflection on the community feedback, the board shall confirm the direction of this issue that we see. Okay. Not saying you need to do anything, just so we know what the outcome is, so something happens.
Would be there.
How do you mean before the school board takes action on this recommendation?
Well, I didn't know, I mean, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
So whether this group thinks they need to be involved, but let's just say it's a riot and all of a sudden no one wants to do it. I mean, you're going to be back there
We can blame
anyway.
you when we go to the board. That's awesome.
Yeah, but then it's out of your hands.
Yeah.
Then it's totally, you give advice and give a recommendation, and we need that this evening so we can we can't have a second step without a first step. And then after that step, whether the riots happen or whatever perspective, then it's totally up to the board to take in all that information, your recommendation, what kind of feedback we get from the community. It'll essentially be the board's decision.
And I want to make sure everyone in the community supports that, so I had to bring it up. So, whether you want to be in the middle of it or not, or say that's why you get the big bucks for being board members.
She gets paid the same amount.
Right.
You guys are equals. Yeah, absolutely.
We've never lowered their pay.
That's right.
Equal in all levels.
Any other amendments or additions, deletions?
I'm sure Carl may have covered this, but it does seem like if I were somebody from outside reading this, I would want to know what rationale did you factor into this recommendation? And in my mind, the rationale is that I believe it brings the highest benefit to future students. And that would be my number one factor. So if we could include that in there, and maybe you covered this, Carl, is something, the other thing I have is the lowest cost, including maintenance costs, for the best return to the community. And I don't know where that goes, maybe up in that, the top part.
Yeah, I think it's in the second sentence. It has to be put in the second sentence.
I like that line of thinking, Dick, where we're going a little deeper into our rationale for why we're making this recommendation to the school board. And the student benefits, I think, is something we haven't talked as much about. We've been very much honed in on design and cost, but as you just stated, that's what it's really all about at the end, and I think that's a good addition.
I think, Cheryl, you brought in there is something to the effect of considering the teaching and learning environment, but also the safety environment.
Good point.
I think anytime you can factor in some safety measures, I think that's key on parents' minds right now.
Point of clarification, am I taking the notes on these amendments? So, Steve, are you taking?
I've been taking some notes.
Good,
yeah.
good.
I have notes too, and we have the tape. So
Okay, excellent.
I, for one, trust the chair to incorporate the edits as and accurately convey our intent to the board.
Before we take a vote, I guess I would ask in the next day or two, Steve, or one of you, if you could send out the revised recommendation for a discussion to all of us. Let us have one last look at it to make sure it's capturing what you found. But on that note, it looks like we're probably ready to take a vote.
A minor point, I don't know that it needs to be incorporated here, but I don't want the idea lost, the suggestion of having the conceptual design begin early, and as long as we all agree on that, that's fine. Again, I don't think it needs to be in here, but I wanted to confirm that everybody seems to be on board with that.
ask the question again. Are we ready to, do we have a second? Well, I think we need to start over with, Brian, if you could amend your motion to reflect the modifications that we've made.
I would move approval of the staff recommendation with the changes to the main body of the text, recognizing the consideration of long-term fiscal responsibility and the highest value and benefit to future students, and that in the first bullet, the portion of the sentence after Raleigh Hills is struck to say, unless the new bond does not pass.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was an excellent discussion tonight. Paul and Aaron and team, thank you for putting together this information in such short order. You made it easy.
Thank you for making the change of venue for this evening's meeting. Allowed 2 events to happen in one. Appreciate that.
Right.
Generally, what kind of timetable are we looking at moving forward to
Our intention is to go out to the community.
the school board?
Our intention is to go out to the community in very short order with information to them. And the brief you have, it's a different level of detail and some different factors we'll bring out as we go to the community. But we'll be putting that information out in very short order with the intention that we'll be able to go to the board in November is our hope. Of course, if there's tremendous issues that come up in the community piece, it may be longer, but our goal would be to have this to the board in November.
A couple of things too, Dick, and good question that you asked. So as Paul said, we'll be going out to the community in short order within the next couple of weeks. We'll be going to the staff as early as next week because we need to have that conversation and dialogue at the site so they have a level of awareness because it's going to be disappointment, as you can well imagine. They've had their eye on the prize, kind of, oh my gosh, we're going to get some new things. So that's the first level. I've also asked for a draft of a letter to be sent out to the community sooner than later with some specific details of this. It's not going to be a short little letter. It's going to be a front and a back letter that gives details because there's going to be some people who read the context of it and say, this makes sense, and this answers their questions and their needs, rather than to simply put a notice out there to say we're having a meeting. That's going to cause far more stir in a community, and it's not being incredibly transparent. And the second we inform staff, we know staff have got great connections with their community, and that too will be going forward. So we want to be as transparent as we possibly can with everyone sooner than later in this process.
I just sent a meeting invite to Maureen as soon as the vote was finished.
Are you available at 7:30?
We need to, get all hands on deck to develop the communication plan. And what is this meeting going to look like? When is this meeting going to be? Where is it going to be? How's it going to be conducted? That kind of thing. So it's going to happen soon.
Very soon. Thank you, everyone. I know this was not easy.
But when you have the meeting, if you'd like BAC attendance, please let us know.
As Maureen said, I think having your attendance there actually adds value to it. We would not put you up there as keynotes or, well, these are the people,
That's their fault.
That's right. Brian made the motion and Carl seconded it. So, no.